I don't know who he is, but his YouTube channel's called Pro Sports Extra, and he's weighed in on the old Kyle Rittenhouse thing. This is pretty old. This dates to August 29th, just a few days after the actual shooting, long before a lot of people even knew what happened. That's not going to stop him from jumping in here. And he's going to lay claim that Kyle Rittenhouse is obviously in the wrong because he hit a girl. Let's listen up.
What he did. And now we have video of this Kyle Rittenhouse. I'm smacking my desk a lot today because this kid pisses me off, and that there's so many people on the internet who are glorifying this murderer, this mass shooter. Kyle Rittenhouse is now also a woman beater. Yep, 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse. There's a video going viral right now of him from earlier this summer coming around and bam, hitting a girl a couple times in the head. Messed up. This kid is a piece of junk.
Yeah, that's pretty messed up. I mean, if he hit a girl, well, he's obviously the person who murdered those protesters. I mean, person who hits a girl is definitely in the wrong. Person like that is out of control. He's berserk. Hello out there. I am trying to get through.
With his powerful brainwaves cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnnie Walker Dread to straighten you out on a thing or two. Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's the Johnnie Walker Dread Show.
Okay, let's take a look at the other people involved in the whole shooting mess. Now, who are they? Let's see here. We have Anthony Huber, Joseph Rosenbaum, and Gage Grosskreutz. Now, what is their background with women? Let's take a look here. We start off with Joseph Rosenbaum. Now, his fiancée is named Ms. Swart, and guess what? She's having a little bit of trouble with JoJo. Apparently, she was looking on his phone and found pornography on it. Now, how big a deal is that? Well, the very fact that he is a child molester and child rapist could be, but that's not the problem here today. Right now, what we have is a little problem with when she confronts him. Ms. Swart went outside and confronted the defendant about finding porno on his phone. Ms. Swart said the defendant just went off and started screaming at her. So disrespectful. I mean, but I'm sure it's going to be limited to that. I mean, he wouldn't hit her. The defendant suddenly turned toward the shed in the backyard and began punching it. Ms. Swart said she told her defendant to calm down and stop hitting the shed. Ms. Swart started to walk away from the defendant so she could go into the house. So she's trying to get away from him. A smart move. The defendant ran in after her and started yelling at her, getting in her face. Ms. Swart said she put her arm up in front of herself to block the defendant from pushing his body against her. It goes on. Ms. Swart says she began to walk away from the defendant again and made entry through the front door of the house. Before she was able to completely shut the door, the defendant shoved the door open and proceeded to body slam her to the living room floor. So she tries to get away from him. He chases after her, and then he body slams her. Ms. Swart said when the defendant slammed her to the ground, her ankles were smashed between the door frame and the door. Ms. Swart said she was able to get off the ground and realized she was bleeding from her mouth. Officer Bray observed what appeared to be blood stains on Ms. Swart's teeth and gums. Ms. Swart stated when the defendant slammed her to the ground, it caused her pain and injury, and she feared for her safety. Ms. Swart said she did not give the defendant consent to hurt her. Oh, man, that's pretty bad. And the police were called, and he was arrested because he's a psycho. But that's just Rosenbaum. I mean, we have two more people. I mean, could lightning strike 3 times? Well, let's turn our attention now to Anthony Huber. Okay, so Anthony Huber is going to go off on his sister here. Now, his sister's name is Caitlin. And according to this, Caitlin stated that she lives at the residence with her brother, the defendant, Anthony Hughes, when it should actually be Anthony Huber. I don't know if he just goes by both names or what. She stated on this date she was in her bedroom when the defendant entered the room and yelled at her about needing an insurance card. Caitlin told the defendant she would look for it in a little while. The wrong thing to say to Anthony Huber. She went into the living room to work on a craft project involving wine glasses. The defendant began to yell at Caitlin loudly about finding the card. Caitlin began to look through her purse for the card. As she was doing so, the defendant continued to yell and scream about the card and how no one does anything around the house to keep the house clean. Caitlin threw her purse at the defendant, which caused a wine glass to break on the floor. The defendant stepped on a piece of the broken glass like a big dummy and cut his foot. The defendant then stated, "See what you did," as he went into his bedroom. Actually, you stepped on it, big dummy. As Caitlin began to pick up the broken glass, the defendant came out of the bedroom and kicked her in the right hip, causing her pain without her consent, and she fell into a nearby dog crate. He must have kicked the hell out of her. Caitlin then called her mother. The defendant left the residence prior to police arrival. Oh, wait a minute. He left the residence? He committed a crime and he left? That's another crime, right? Isn't that what the anti-Kyles say? That if you flee the scene of a crime, you're committing another crime. No, that's not the case. They don't know the law. They're big dummies too. Officer Stephen Winter of the Kenosha Police Department attempted to locate the defendant. Officer contacted the defendant by telephone. The defendant sounded upset and crying because of the horrible things that he did to his sister, feeling terrible about it. He assaulted his sister, causing her pain, causing her to fear for her safety. That's why he's crying, and stated that he was angry at his sister for calling the police on him. This is skateboard hero, the legend, who binds the skateboarding community together. The defendant stated that he didn't do anything wrong. After all, it's just his sister. Officer Winter encouraged the defendant to turn himself in, but he stated, "I ain't going back to jail. I'm just going to kill myself." Oh, yeah, empty threat there, Anthony. There's your Anthony Huber legend kicking his sister. Now let's turn our attention to Gage Grosskreutz. Now, Gage's offenses actually could be even more despicable. So far, we have our victims kicking sisters and body slamming Beyoncés. Let's turn our attention to what they do to grandmas. Now, the reason why Gage is living with his grandmother was because he got kicked out of the house. His mother threw him out of the house because of his behavior. And so his grandmother takes him in and is going to regret that. His grandmother, by the way, is named Janice. Janice stated when she returned home and confronted Gage, this was about a driver's license or something like that. No, it was about a cell phone. Somehow along the line, the school took away Gage's cell phone from him. He wanted her to drive over there and get it back. And he was really rude about it. And she said, "Nah, I ain't doing that." And he got really upset, like the little spoiled bitch he was. He lashed out at her and got into her face. Getting into their faces seemed like kind of a common thing here. Janice stated she told Gage to get out of her house due to his behavior, but he refused to do so. That's called trespassing. Actually, probably not. He's actually living there, so she probably can't throw him out of the house that easily. Janice stated Gage was up in her face, challenging her to kick him out of the house, and was being constantly disrespectful. Janice stepped in order to get Gage out of her face. She slapped him across his face. That's what grandmas do, man. You get in their face and you're being disrespectful, daring them to throw you out. Yeah, they'll slap you. Grandmas are supposed to be able to slap their grandkids who are little spoiled bitches. Janice stated Gage's behavior was making her fearful. That's another thing they seem to run through all of these stories. Janice stated Gage then grabbed the lamp off of the end table in the living room and swung it at the living room wall, damaging both the lamp and the wall. It's her home. She's taking him in. And he's tearing up her stuff and her house. Johnnie stated she continued to tell Gage to leave the residence, at which time he refused to do so and got back up into Janice's face. Johnnie stated as their argument continued, Gage slapped her across the right side of her face with an open hand, which caused her pain. Johnnie stated she immediately went into the kitchen and called the police regarding Gage's behavior. Johnnie stated when she was on the phone, Gage must have snuck out of the house. He's breaking the law, according to the anti-Kyles. You can't do that. Kyle fled the scene of the shooting. That's like breaking the law. You can't flee the scene of a crime. Oh, it's what Gage did. It's not against the law, you big dummies. So notice here, we have grandmas, sisters, fiancés, all getting assaulted. And in every situation here, the police are called and the dudes are arrested. And yet, we make a big deal out of Kyle Rittenhouse hitting a girl. By the way, we don't know what the fight was about. That's the one between the girls that Kyle got involved in. We don't know who started it. Someone said that the girl that Kyle hit was picking on his sister, but yeah, who knows? I mean, it's not even clear if Kyle knew who started the fight or what. I don't believe Kyle was ever arrested for it. One thing is for sure, though, to try to lay down a whole lot of hostility on Kyle when the 3 people he shot have even worse offenses, it's a little bit hypocritical. Like my video and subscribe to my channel.